welcome to this month's roundtable on generations in membership. That's a good introduction for the recording. So towards the end of this, I'd love your feedback on how we can make this community better for you. My hunch is that this is going to be a really good way for us to get together once a month or so in person to have these discussions, just to spark ideas and stimulate ourselves intellectually. If we decide that the LinkedIn community part is not of much value, then that's fine too. If we also find that it's a technical issue where we're just not seeing stuff in there, well, it's probably something we can remedy as well. But we'll have that conversation in a little bit. All right, topic again, generations in membership. Just some stats. We've got the 267 members. I think something I'd like to do is see if we can expand these we haven't really put a lot of effort into expanding these in-person things, but I'd like to bring more membership people in and then perhaps have breakout groups in these as opposed to this coziness. But who knows? If you guys disagree with that, I'm fine keeping it like this too. All right, to spark the conversation, let's start here. What is your association doing to address the needs of the multiple generations within your membership? And how are you ensuring you're adding value to members within all generations? So it's a very broad question. Does anything come to mind? I'm gonna leave it at that for now. Does anything come to mind in terms of how do you service the different age groups or maybe membership types all the way from student all the way up to retirees? Anyone want to kick us off? Yeah, Cassandra. Muted.
Habit. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so what we've been trying to do for the last 3 years or so, we've been introducing a student track at our annual conference and at our fall conference geared directly towards osteopathic medical students to help them through their first, second, third, and fourth, and even residency on how to plan from their in-school learning to rotation, to clinical rotations, to actually applying to residency programs, how to interview for that program, and once they've interviewed, how to look at a contract for their first positions and things like that.
So that's the student side of it. Do you have, let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Do you have a retirement program or a retiree program?
We do. We've been putting on webinars on what the steps you need to take when you retire. What do you do with your medical records? How do you inform your patients? What, well, I don't give investment advice, but we have professional investment people come in and say, this is what you need to be doing when you're looking at retiring.
Yeah, buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
Liz.
Yes, we have several communities within our membership here. One of them is our next gen community, and oops, sorry, I keep trying to lower that. And they are extremely active. They're probably our most active community. We do a lot for them. They have their own advisory group that pretty much runs, they have their own annual meeting in January. They like to go somewhere warm and sunny, and lucky me, I get to always follow them. So this year it's in St. Kitts. But we pretty much put a lot of effort and time and money into them because they are the next generation of funeral homeowners. They're typically the kids of our primary funeral homeowners, not always, but for the most part. So they pick their content, they pick their speakers, they pick what they want to do at these seminars. So we highly involve them, but there is a lot of emphasis on that one group.
And what about members that have been around for a decade or just past the stage of entering the business?
We do have a first gen too for first generation funeral homeowners. It's not as active, but we don't really, there's a problem in this profession right now where those, that level of members, for lack of better word, is like our old school members, and they're not as active. They're looking to sell or leave it to their kids or, transition out. So we do some succession planning activities for them, but we don't concentrate on them as much as next gen, because without next gen, we're not going to have an association. So we kind of want to engage them now and make sure that, and their needs are so different than the members of, 10 years ago. So
That's
they,
really interesting. I mean, you said a lot of them are looking to sell. Like that's fascinating to me because the buyers are potential members, right? So,
not always, not for us, because we represent strictly independent funeral homeowners. So a lot of them are
oh,
selling to corporate and then they can no longer be members. So
I saw a movie about that. Really, really good.
yeah,
Can't remember the name of the movie. You probably know what
I
I'm
don't know
talking
the name of it, but I know what you're referring to.
about. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna find it. It's so good. Strong recommendation.
Yeah.
Anna, did I see you kind of raise your hand?
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind for me was our mentorship program. And we did not anticipate when we started it how much demand we would have for our members who are retiring. Certainly to help the transition and things like medical records, how long you have to keep them, all of that. But also, I think just as a way, as something for retired members to do, honestly, to stay connected, to give back to younger generations. But it's been great because they're able to mentor some of our senior psychiatrists who wouldn't necessarily have like someone more experienced than them. However, and then we do really well with our like med students residents, but that early career piece is where we're kind of missing. And for private practice, it's really easy for us. You're opening a business, you need help. They don't teach you that. But for everyone else, that's where we lose members. They move to different states. And so that's what I'm really interested in, is that next generation, like right when you're starting to do the actual work after you're done with education. So.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point, Anna. So the question that we had here kind of addresses multiple generations, but I'd be interested in knowing, of the people on the call today, like, is there one generation you're more focused on right now? Is there one generation you're struggling with more than the other?
Great question.
I'm Anna. We are also working with physicians, residents, et cetera. And I would say early career for us is the biggest. It's not a focus. Like, we're struggling with how to engage them because it's the biggest drop off. Like they need us in residency for education purposes and to build their career. And then in early career, it's like their focus shifts and it's a big drop off. So that's where we're struggling. We are trying to focus more on people coming close to retirement, and we honestly shift back and forth with medical students. They are free members for us. So, and we are a chapter, we are not a national organization, so we do not get dues from them. But they are the next generation. However, they are our biggest no-shows, even at events and things that we do that they say they want, they don't show up. So we do struggle. Those are the ones that we struggle with.
Same for us. We actually started charging med students for in-person dinners if they didn't show. If they showed up, it was all free. But if they didn't show last minute, then we charged them. So,
And you follow through on that?
what was that?
You follow through on that?
Yeah.
How did that work? I'm really curious because I've heard that
we did it the opposite way, and it was a bit of work, but we put a lot of work into our most recent med student event and a lot of money into it. And so we charged everyone and then we refunded everyone who showed up. And we had better turnout than we have in the past for medical students. But yeah, we couldn't afford to just pay for a bunch of dinners for people who weren't there. So we didn't get any negative feedback from that though. So it was just more work for us to do the processing. But same issue, free members.
I can share kind of what we're doing here. We work with airport management students and young professionals. Workforce development is a really huge issue in our industry because people move around a lot. So from the board down, we have a big emphasis on young professionals. We just, a couple of years ago, moved our young professionals group to an official committee. And we've since grown it from 2017 to now to over 500 members. They meet once a month, and they have a topic that kind of piques the interest of both our consultant members and our airport members. And then they do some business. We also do a lot of other events. So we have a professional development working group and a membership engagement working group under the Young Professionals Committee. And they create content, they create professional development webinars. From those webinars, they're creating one-pagers. So we had one on resume building and another on conflict management, and they're putting together kind of a book of tips and tricks for young professionals. We also raise the age from 35 and under to 40 and under. And there's a lot of associations in our industry space. So what we did is we've created the Young Professionals Aviation Coalition with 5 other organizations, and twice a year we get together on one big call and everybody gets to network and meet each other. And many of the attendees are members of several associations, so there's a lot of crossover there. We also have, I think I'm up to 29 student chapters in the country. So colleges and universities that have aviation management programs can create a chapter. And we do a big track for the aviation student members at our annual conference every year, where we pair every single one of them with an industry mentor for on-site mentoring. Throughout the whole conference, we do a career exploration fair, we do education track, and the most popular one is the mixer with the mentors, where we have volunteers from our membership come in and sit at tables, and every like 10 to 12 minutes we blow a whistle and all the students move to another table, and that's been a huge success. So lots of really good stuff coming out of our members. And really with the Young Professionals Committee, I'm the staff liaison, but I sort of just sit back and push the buttons. They do all the planning, everything. So
Jennifer, that's a lot of really good stuff. What do you, is there something you're challenged with? Like, what do you feel as though is the biggest challenge you're dealing with?
It's hard to say. I think we're kind
That's
of
pretty good.
unlike,
That's
I mean,
great.
we're unlike a lot of associations because our young professional program has really skyrocketed. But I really think workforce development has become such an issue in our industry that the board of directors is putting a lot of emphasis behind improving these programs and making sure that our younger and our new to industry folks are supported.
I put the questions in the chat rather than sharing a slide. I just figured that might be easier. I think we touched on the first and second one already. Let's jump into that third question there. Let's, and might even touched on this a little bit, but how are you encouraging engagement with your senior or retired members? Like, and let me, while you're thinking about that, one of the things that I've seen associations do is in the renewal process, a big reason why people are renewing is because they're retiring. So like, show of hands, who has a retirement membership or retirement program for their organization? About, looks like 2/3 of the associations here. And it's always a shame in my eyes when people say like, I'm retiring and therefore I'm letting my membership lapse, when there's probably a lot of passion still in the industry that the association can tap into, either as a mentor or a thought leader, or whatever. So having said that, I'm curious, and not just for retirees, but what are you doing for people, tenured members and retirees?
Dave, can
Deborah?
I,
Yeah.
can I
Go.
talk about
Yeah, all
that?
yours.
I love those people. Those are my people. And I say that because I'm in their age range.
I
So
think so.
we created a podcast for a bar association, and it is really engaging the members. And I'm only interviewing boomers. And so we call it the Boomer Bar. And we're not doing anything legal. We're just having fun. And I'm asking all of them like a set of questions. Where are you from? And how did you end up here in San Mateo? And they tell me all these great stories. And what I find is the younger people are listening. As I'm walking down the street, they stop me and they're like, hey, I listened to you interview, Judge Foyles. And even though he's retired, he was so funny. And I learned a lot about this. And it's interesting that the other generation is listening to it, which I didn't expect at all.
How do you
So
measure success with that
with a
podcast?
podcast,
Yeah.
you can by, the number of hits and views, but I don't care about that. I don't even look at that much. How I measure it is by the engagement of people talking to me about it. I am always out in the community. People talk to me about it at church. People talk to me about it on the street. People talk to me about it at work. And then other people talk to me about other people. So, how would I say? There's this one guy who stopped me the other day and said it was so good listening to the podcast and then learning about somebody's family history. I've been knowing that guy all this time, and I never knew he was in a car accident, or I just thought his nose looked like that because that's the way he was born instead of his face was reconstructed. It's just all kinds of information that comes out of it that seems to like float back to me somehow.
That's great. I love
So
to hear that. And
yeah,
you're a lover, Deborah. I can tell. You're not in this for the metrics as much as you're in it because you're getting
no,
soft feedback from people saying it's awesome. And so even if it touches a smaller number of people, I think it's a really relevant point. Even though it may touch a
it
smaller number
may.
of people, it has a pretty heavy impact on the people it touches. And more importantly, you're enjoying doing it.
I am.
Yeah.
And I want to stop, but people keep asking me, can they be on it?
What's
You
the
must
name
be
of
a
the
So,
fun
podcast
person to talk
again?
to.
Say it again.
well, she said, you must be a fun person to talk to. I said, I wanted to stop, but people keep asking me, oh, hey, can I be on it? I'm in a murder trial, but as soon as I'm done, I'm going to be on it. Somebody said that yesterday, and I was like, darn, I thought I did my last episode. But I am having fun at it, and it's not expensive, by the way. An episode cost me less than $100 to produce,
Can
so
you put
people
the
should
name
know
of
that.
can you put the name of your producer in the chat?
Um,
Because that is
I
very inexpensive. Well, the ones I've seen are more like $250. I've never seen less than that. So I'd love to get your producer.
okay, I will do that as soon as I figure out how to get off of this screen on my
Oh,
phone.
or if you
Yeah.
just want to tell us, that's fine too.
The person who does the editing is Mariela Ramirez. And I'm connected with her on LinkedIn. So if you connect with me, you'll find her. She is, as I call, a world traveler. Right now, she's in the Philippines. And this is so great. This is what the gig economy does. They move around and they do what they want to do when they want to do it. And I love that. And she charges me like $45 to do the editing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
she's
then
a
I have
virtual assistant basically, and this is something she focuses on. Yeah.
Yep. And then
I had
another
a
girl does the write-up, which you could do now with AI, and her write-up is $30. But like AI is free and you could do it with that. So it is just a good way to engage. And I've been thinking about doing them with family law because it's a bar and there's lots of to talk about in family law.
What's the name of the podcast again?
It's called the Boomer Bar.
Boomer Bar. So I've got a Association Strong is a podcast I do with Tom Morrison. If at all you're digging podcasts and you like
Oh, I
conversation.
am.
And if anyone here wants to be a guest on the podcast, I would very much like to have you. We just talk about your organization, some of the challenges you deal with from a membership perspective. It's basically a one-on-one version of this roundtable thing. So please send me a DM or an email, dave@propfuel.com, if you'd like to be on the podcast. I would love to have you on.
Thanks. I'd be happy to do it with you, Dave.
Let's do it, Deborah. All right, I'm writing
Okay.
it down. Who else? Who else has something they want to say about their interaction with senior/retiree members? For anyone here who does not have a retiree component to their membership, can you tell me why? Because I cannot imagine.
So ours is because our national controls it. So we don't have the option. We do get,
your NYACP.
yeah,
So ACP doesn't, yeah.
correct. So, yeah, we don't have control over that. We do share feedback because, I know you said not talk prop fuel, but in using
Okay.
prop fuel, when we ask like, why are you choosing not to renew? And we help them with campaigns because we do support them to try to reach out to our members to help with renewals. A lot of retirees come back and say that it's the cost. They can apply for a discount. I don't know if they always get it though. There's a form for other extenuating circumstances. So that's ours. So we do try to engage them in try to find places for them on committees to be able to give back, to be able to use the knowledge. I mean, even former leaders, right? How do we keep former leaders retired? It's not just like retired from practice, it's also retired from being in leadership. How do you keep them involved? So we try to obviously get them involved in mentorship and other types of committees. And the other thing we found is that they're looking for that connection still. So we tried, we were doing a mentor series for our residents, med students, and trying to get early careers in there. And actually I had retired physicians or physicians nearing retirement reach out to me and say, can we add a breakout room for retirees and do topics? And it actually built on to, they discussed topics that came out of that. We're like, cool, we can do other programming for you on that. And one of them, I think somebody else mentioned investments, like that was one of them. So they had a whole event around that for their focus. So we kind of make them a little focus group and community sometimes.
If there's a topic or a question you have for the group, by all means, jump in, ask the group, or put it in chat, and I'll bring it up next. I mean, anything you guys want before we run out of time. We got 20 minutes left before you run out of time. Yeah, you got something, Hannah?
So our sort of sell to retired members is our mentorship program and just stay engaged with your community, stay connected. But are there any other sort of marketing points that people use to have retired members not leave membership?
Yeah, Dave, I was going to comment too, and I'm interested in Anna's question. We used to have a lifetime membership, but the national organization killed that and replaced it with a low-cost annual membership for retirees. But with a very, very small percentage of exceptions, our experience has been after 30, 40 years of supply management, people kind of are done with it and not wanting to be real involved. Again, there are exceptions, but that's so. I'm interested in Anna's question as well.
We actually have two levels of retired membership. One is our executive emeritus. So if you get accredited during your career and you maintain that, all the way to retirement, then we just comp you for life. The other one is just a retired membership for the rest of our members, and I think it's 150 a year. We have like 25 people in that one, so it's not super popular.
My father was a member of ASME, Mechanical Engineers, and he was a fellow. And even after retirement, he remained active in it, I think simply because of his passion for that. But one thing that fostered his passion was the fellowship, if that's what you call it, becoming fellow, like rewarding leadership and seniority in the organization. And there's another side to that coin, which includes mentorship, which again, I don't run an organization, although I am on the board for my chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization. And so like a lot of the stuff I associate with that in EO, 18,000 members worldwide, 100 some or close to 200 chapters. It used to be called YEO, Young Entrepreneurs Organization. And guess what happened? Everybody got older. And what started as a fairly smaller group of young entrepreneurs bringing this thing together aged. And so like I can tell you in the Boston chapter, the average age is like late 40s and going up. It's not shrinking. Like we still have just as many members. It's just it attracts that kind of people. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Naturally, our knee-jerk reaction is, well, we need more younger members. But what if our core member really is the late 30s, mid 40s, early 50s entrepreneur? So I don't know how that relates to you guys. I mean, I think oftentimes we just want to focus on our weakness when actually maybe it's just the strength that we should focus on. I mean, that works for our skill set, our individual skill sets too. Is like we so often want to work on the things that we suck at. So do any of you feel like, okay, here I'm going to take all of that and lead to a question with it. Do any of you feel like you're spinning your wheels on a certain segment of your membership that isn't worth the energy?
Don't we all feel that way?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's actually, sometimes I think we don't spin our wheels enough. Like actually, you talk about focusing on our weakness, right? Actually, I just saw a reel from Matthew McConaughey saying sometimes we need to dissect our successes so we know like what went well, and when something doesn't go well, what can we go back to that we've done well in the past, right?
Yeah.
We have these events that are successful and that need to be frankly washed, rinsed, and repeated every year because the same things come up in workforce development. Every year, people want to know, how do I get for us? How do I get into residency? What do I need in my letter of recommendation? What do I say for my interviews? And we do the topic once, and then the next year the committee thinks like, oh, we've already done it, so we don't need to do it again. When really, if we could just do those every year, that's where we would keep drawing people in because it never stops. It never goes away. So that's where I don't know if I feel like sometimes we don't spin our wheels when we should.
That's incredible. That's really good insight.
Yeah, Dave, I think it's a really interesting question. We just spent a little money with a small marketing agency to try to help us sharpen up our brand profile and kind of how we're trying to grow the organization. And one of their big criticisms is we were kind of trying to go after everybody. And they did a bunch of research and kind of came back with an avatar for our ideal member. And we were surprised it was a 32-year-old male that's married and has 2 kids, and, a full rundown on that. But they said, that's who you need to focus on. That's where your big opportunity is. Doesn't mean you exclude all these other groups, but if you kind of try to focus on 7 different groups, you're not going to do well with anybody. Anyway, very small association, but that's something we're trying to figure out how to now internalize and figure out what we do about it.
Randy, we did the same thing early this year, and the person said, stop trying to figure out each market segment to us. Like, you're working on the boomers, so and so's working on Gen Z, so and so's working. Stop that. You need to focus now because we got a wide cross section. You need to focus now on what they care about and how they feel. And I never thought about how they feel. How do they feel at this event? How do they feel when they leave this event? And apparently, feelings are so much more important than cost.
You are
'Cause
such a lover, Deborah. You and your feelings, it's awesome. Who cares about the
well,
metrics of the podcast? I love it.
well, the feelings are where we are this year, and the feelings are bringing us people who left. They're coming back. It's amazing about the feelings. The feelings are important, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this event? And how do people feel afterwards? How do they feel during the event? And how did you feel? So
Yeah, it's the old Maya Angelou quote, right? I don't really want to know what I'm not going to remember what you tell me, but I'm going to remember how I felt.
that's
Yeah.
right. And so that's what we're focusing on. And it's amazing what makes people remember how they felt. Good speakers make them remember. Good tchotchkes make them remember. So
That's fascinating you say tchotchkes. And again,
mhm,
going back to my experience on the board of, my role right now. So I use it was the learning chair. Now I'm in charge of not coincidentally, but I'm in engagement, membership engagement for our chapter now. And one of the things I notice is like the board members all have cool swag and they have all this cool EO stuff. Here's one of our hats right here that I got because I was on the board. Ask me about my cult with our thing on the side. Anyway, that's just an example of some of the swag, but a lot of the members do not. And I believe it's hats
that's
and
right.
shirts and hoodies and backpacks. Stuff like this actually creates a more emotional connection to the community and the group. And it
Yep.
may seem to some, I think something like that seems fruitless, but to me, it creates a strong sense of pride in the organization. So I'm with you, Deborah.
Yeah.
We're
I
trying to
have
do
people
something.
wearing
Sorry.
hats and badges.
Yeah.
We're
Sorry, who
trying to
said?
do something similar with our student chapters, just because it's so hard. Most of them go to school to become pilots. And then by sophomore, junior year, realize that they're not going to be a pilot, but they want to stay in the industry. And so reaching those students when they're freshmen and sophomores is really hard. So I have started every August sending a box of swag to each student chapter to use for their recruitment fairs. I just sent, I think I sent 5 different tchotchkes this year. And there were 25 of each in each box, so 125 things. And the student chapters love it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it creates some stickiness and some brand awareness for the younger students as well.
Hey, Liz, we'll get right to you in 1 second. Brittany, could you post a link to this question? So while we're talking, if you wouldn't mind filling this out, so 5 questions, something like that. This has to do with the membership masterminds community in general. We're facilitating this, and we really want it to be your organization. Answer these questions. We'll look at this, and it'll help us determine our next steps and what we focus on and what we don't, and so on. Okay, so really appreciate it. Brittany posted this link. Everybody will have, these are anonymous, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't really care necessarily the individual. If there's something you actually want to say to me, something that's related, you send me an email, dave@propfuel.com. Otherwise, fill us out. We're gonna just take this input and it'll help us guide the direction of where we go with this community. All right, thank you. Who just had a comment?
Liz, yeah, Liz had her
thank
hand up.
you.
So this isn't generational, but one of the biggest segments that I'm having a challenge with now that it probably could be a whole nother hour. So if somebody wants to private message me, I would love some input, is our women in funeral service. So that's a whole separate community for us. And we have 900 women in our database. I've been trying to revamp this whole community this year, and it's been a struggle. The problem is because they are all at different stages of their career, it's really hard to find a common ground for them of interest. So we're thinking about segmenting it next year into, you know, as far as sponsorships and things like that go, sponsoring different segments of that whole community, because I'm just at a loss at how to get them really involved, because we find we do something and it only attracts maybe 40 members because it's only applicable to that group of women. And so if anybody has experience with women in their associations, I would love to pick your brain about that.
Do you mean like women just joining or women participation?
Women participation and catering to that segment of your membership. So like I said, we have 4 communities. One of them is our next gen. One of them is women in funeral service. And that's been the hardest one to kind of get off the ground.
Wow. Okay. We could talk. I have one. We just call it the women lawyers section, and we encourage all the women in the entire bar to join it.
Liz, what
Okay.
percentage of your membership, I'm sorry, what percentage of funeral home owners are
women.
are women?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it's small.
Okay.
But there are a lot in leadership roles that are angling. There's quite a few that, took over family firms and things like that, that need that networking and peer support.
So
But it's all the way down to admins. So it's, those 900 women.
Bye, Bill. The reason I asked that is it's a similar characteristic in the entrepreneur world. So if you look at businesses greater than $1 million in revenue, it's approximately 20% of them are owned by women. And well, you might even get into some of this being a tax purpose of women-owned businesses. There's a benefit to having a women-owned business. So you might even have like a married couple where the woman owns the business. So like it's no more than 20% are women-owned businesses. So EO is on this constant initiative to try to create events and stuff that appeal to women, which I think is fascinating because 20% of the pool of members out there are women. So it raises the question is, do we have a responsibility to help foster that piece of the industry? Or do you focus on the core member? I forgot who it was that said earlier, was it Randy might have said that the average member was a male 30 some odd years old. I'm not saying everything you do is to them, but it is really interesting. So this is one of those things that, do you put more than 20% of your energy into focusing on women because we want to grow that pool of membership? Or do you, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, but it's a really interesting question. And you might be saying to yourself, well, no, we believe as an organization that it's our responsibility to grow the awareness for young women to get involved in this space. I know EO feels that way about entrepreneurship, as they should.
Good point, though.
All right, last question I want to ask real quick. We won't spend too much time on this because we have 5 minutes, and I always like to let people go early as opposed to a minute late. Does anybody see any trends coming in generations and how it might impact the the association world? Boomers retiring or Gen X, or is it millennials? I think millennials are like this huge wave of millennials getting into the crux of their careers.
I don't see millennials volunteering as much as other generations, but we'll see.
Oh, I don't know about a trend, but one thing I've noticed with our membership, the younger members, be it millennials or whatever, I'm Gen X, so I stopped paying attention a long time ago.
Me too.
But I noticed, as I told my executive directors and our board, our biggest competition is not other associations or even ourselves. It's our members' abilities to connect on other platforms by themselves without us.
Yeah.
They form their own communities. They form their own networks, and we're not part of
Yep.
it.
Yep.
So
And Deborah, so this makes me immediately think of you. I believe firmly, I don't have any evidence about this, and nor do I see a lot of talk about this in our world, but I believe association's greatest asset is emotional. I think it's people's how they identify. I identify as a creator entrepreneur, right? Like that's a huge part of who I am. Another piece of who I am is an association professional. Another piece is an endurance athlete. Like those three things right there is aside from a family man too. Those four things right there. Notice how I squeezed that one in. Those
Yeah.
four things are my identity. But the reason I belong to EO is because it's who I am, and I can't imagine not belonging to it. And I don't think associations tap into that emotional element of membership enough.
Right. And the boomers get that. And so that's what I'm hoping to tease out on the podcast for other people. You know, I ask questions like, why is it important to give back? Why do you belong? You know, so other people can hear that.
Why did you join? Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And what's your legacy?
Oh,
Yep.
man, that's a heavy one.
Get some thinking. And I think the young generation is it's hard for them to consider what a legacy is right now. Like I'm still
That's a
talking
big
to them
question,
about
Deborah.
yeah, about hey, you need to deposit money in a 401k, okay?
Dave, that's exactly what our marketing agency told us. You guys are focused on content and you need to focus on connections.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, Dave, I just had a thought that I'm going to throw out, which I know we can't cover today. I was just thinking, because in Southern San Diego, where I am, or, Southern California, we struggle to get anybody to attend any of the Cal SAE events. Just nobody shows up, or if they register, they don't come. And I know somebody else mentioned earlier that people are signing up, even if they pay 15, 20 bucks, which I know is sort of, in theory, a way to get people to commit, right? If they're putting money on the table, then they're going to show, but they're not. But I'm trying to wonder, I'm starting to wonder how this whole virtual world, whether it be virtual office space or virtual events or whatever it might be, is also impacting what you were just talking about, which is that emotional connection, right? Like even between, like if your boss is a member of an association, how are they able or unable to show you how it emotionally impacts them, so that way you will then want to also join that association and continue with that emotional connection. There's got to be a disconnect there, is my assumption. And again, I don't think we can really talk much about that today, but that just sort of just popped into my head, right? Like if you're not seeing someone on a regular basis and you're not sort of physically and emotionally feeling how they're being emotionally impacted, you're not going to be either. So it becomes more of a transaction. And we all know what a transaction is. A transaction means you're just going to look at the dollar figure and go, yeah, no, too expensive this year. I'm not going to pay, because you don't have that emotional connection.
Well, perhaps another topic for us would be, it's broad, but we can bring it down and talk about things we want to talk about is engagement, meaning like how do we get people to do what we want them to do? Come to events, get involved in the community, volunteer. Would that be a topic you guys wanted to, or is it too broad? All right.
No, that's a good topic.
Getting
topic.
people to do what we want them to do, which is kind of the definition of engagement, I think. All right, 2:01. Like I said, I always like to let people go early. So much for that. All right, thank you guys. I really appreciate you taking time to fill out those questions we have. I hope this is valuable for you. I enjoy it, so we'll keep this going for a little while longer unless we get any objections.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.